Lanterns finally shines light on Aaron Pierre as John Stewart. Disney adds to its stacked release calendar, and Wicked ticket sales defy gravity. All that and more coming up on this week's Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name is Matthew Carroll, and with me today on the panel we have Jay Sisson. How's it going, Jay?
It's going great. We've entered the fall season. It's getting cold out there. I'm in my element, ready to be done with all this 90-degree nonsense, and just helps me be more excited for Multiverse News, knowing that we're in the best season of the year.
Mm-hmm. People keep saying it's getting cold out there. And I just keep hearing that like beginning of 3 a.m. by it's just cold outside. I don't know why. Every time, like every time, it's and for some reason, I guess it's because it's getting cold. I keep hearing that phrase, and I keep going, "She's just cold outside" in my brain every time. Okay,
got our song of the week.
There we go.
We always called it early this week.
Mm-hmm. And Haley Hobbs, how you doing?
I'm great. Ready to be dancing through life with these news stories with you guys.
Ooh. Dancing. And J. Scotty St. Clair.
Hi there. I believe we're going to be talking some Lilo and Stitch later, so in honor of Stitch. How?
Did you practice it before?
I've had Stitch on lockdown for years, ever since the original animated movie came out.
No, it's good. I'm glad, man.
Thank you.
It's important.
It's like your validation is very important to me. This voice in particular.
I really needed Matt's opinion on my Stitch voice. All right. 5-star review for this week is Miggy _ says, one of the best podcasts out there, and when it comes to geeky news, one of the best podcasts out there when it comes to geeky news. Every week I tune in either live or listen the next day. Petition to have J. Scotty write all the intro scripts, please. Keep up the good work, guys. Stay classy.
Whoops, you got me this week. Sorry.
Are we going to categorize it as a compliment to Scotty or a thinly veiled shot at Haley? Which box are we putting it in?
A compliment to Scotty, obviously.
I'm just trying to stir up drama.
What else is new?
It's a team effort here, but if I'm not mistaken, Miggy is one of our devoted listeners, Miguel Martinez.
Yeah.
So definitely appreciate you writing in and leaving the review and always giving us some love.
I think Miggy is just trying to appreciate the puns that happen that are so...
I made some puns this week.
But I'm just here for the drama, is all. Even if it doesn't exist.
The puns are both to be lauded and to be insulted. So, it's really like a... I don't know. Maybe it's like a backhanded compliment.
Comes with the territory.
Plus, I think it was last week or the week before you just came out firing. Like it was like this just flurry of puns. Like we were all just in awe. Yep. Like we were like, another one? He can't do it again. And then DJ came again.
Another one.
To address TJ Stafford in the chat, he says he hates to say it, Scoots, but I think I can out-stitch you. You want to stitch off? I'll stitch off right now. I'm just kidding.
We should let TJ join.
Send a voice note to the email.
Yeah. Please.
Put your voice where your mouth is for real. You can't make those kind of claims without backing it up.
That's the call this week. Send in your voice notes with your best Stitch voice, and we'll play them on the show if we can. Okay.
But really, don't do that, or we won't listen to them.
I will send
we
them.
have a lot to do.
I will do that. I will listen to them.
To
send them. I check the email.
Listen, it's a light news week. If we had a stash of Stitch audio, this would be a great week for it.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Stash.
Hear me out. A compilation of Stitch impressions from the listeners could make like a nice Instagram or something TikTok reel.
I'm super here for it.
Yeah,
multiversenewscast@gmail.com.
There we go. Send them in. Send the video if you want. Okay. We're gonna get to the show, get to the news. The search for Hal Jordan's counterpart in the DCU series Lanterns is over, as Aaron Pierre has been cast as John Stewart. Pierre won out against other frontrunner Stephen James after screen tests with Hal Jordan actor Kyle Chandler. The John Stewart character from comics holds a lot of weight, as it was one of DC's first black superheroes and is a fan favorite. You can catch Pierre on Netflix Rebel Ridge and M. Night Shyamalan's movie Old. Who feels like this duo will shine in brightest day and blackest night?
I do. I think this is great casting, considering the two names that were our front runners last time we talked about this, Aaron Pierre and Stephen James. I'm not sure on that, but I was not overly familiar with either of them, but Aaron Pierre was definitely my preferred choice, and he felt like kind of the standout to me. A little bit more of an established name, and I thought he just looked the part with those piercing eyes. But that being said, as far as his body of work goes, the only thing that I've actually seen from him is M. Night Shyamalan's Old, where I'll be honest, like thinking back on that film, I've only seen it the one time, and I could not have told you that he was in the movie until you told me. I know what character he was. I remember him in the movie, but by the nature of that movie, he was not in the movie for very long. Minor spoilers, I guess. But, thinking about his career and the potential there, I can't help but think back. I don't think we talked about it on the show, or if we did, his name was just it didn't register with us the same way. But once upon a time, he was actually attached to that Blade film, the long gestating Blade film. And then circa March 2024, when the script rewrite started happening, he was released from that. So I'm really happy for him. If things did not work out in the Marvel camp, to get to be a marquee DC character. And John Stewart is my Green Lantern. Like, I knew the name John Stewart before I knew Hal Jordan or any of the other Green Lanterns, just growing up on that animated Justice League series. So I'm super excited for it. I think it's important representation, and I think this series is going to be awesome. I love the casting of Kyle Chandler, and I think Aaron Pierre is the right age to be able to really have that mentor-mentee relationship that we're talking about. And again, just the talent behind the scenes, Damon Lindelof, people that worked on True Detective, all these other things. Like, this just seems like everything is coming together to make this one of the most exciting DC projects, like the one I'm the most anticipated for. So this is a win in my book for sure.
You talked about the representation, and I feel like one thing I really like about this representation of John Stewart being a black man is it's not Black Lantern. You know what I mean? Like, it's so many black superheroes are superheroes. They're the Black Lightning, Black Panther, sure. And like, as much as I love Black Panther, it is representation, but almost like through the lens of that. And John Stewart to me was just always Green Lantern. You know what I mean? Yes, he's a black man, but like, he's just Green Lantern. I think I kind of like that part of representation. I think they're both important. Both kinds can be important, but I kind of like the idea that we're jumping into a Green Lantern that is black and is that era. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I completely agree with the casting. I think he is a perfect choice, and I think he was the front runner, particularly among fans, whenever these names started to surface. People that I saw talking about it in public spaces like social media and all that were really saying that Aaron Pierre was their preferred choice of the three that were really being thrown around. And I think fans overall are very happy with it. And as we start to see James Gunn's DCU take shape, we still have a long ways until we'll see these characters come together, I would imagine, in some sort of a Justice League. But it's got to be leading to that point. I mean, we already know, obviously, about Superman, and now we have Green Lantern. We know that there's several characters that need to be brought into the board for that to eventually happen. But if there's one thing we know about James Gunn, well, really there's two things. One is that he decides to put out the news the day after our podcast every single time. So yeah, we saw it, and we saw the disrespect again, James. It's been noted. But two is that James Gunn, he has a nose for casting. Like, he's great at casting. We've talked about that on this podcast before. We've also talked about that DC is not really in the position to be able to nab probably a lot of big names like superhero films were able to do maybe 7-8 years ago, really in the age of the MCU, where these movies were just really cashing billion-dollar checks every time they hit the box office. So if you wanted to bring in a big name for a villain role or something, seemed to be easy to do that. And we've talked about this new age of comic book movies, that we are sort of entering a post-Endgame era in a way for both Marvel and DC, and changes are coming. We're starting to see the tones of these movies shift a little bit. We're starting to see experiments with how much or how little content goes out to the public on streaming services and on film. And so as we're seeing this character get developed on the screen, the small screen, we will eventually see him jump to the big screen. And I think that's the most exciting part of all this to me, is that you've got this very careful growth of this universe. James Gunn this week was asked what projects are in pre-production right now, and he said only at this moment Supergirl and Lanterns, which people were immediately saying, well, what about Batman Brave and the Bold? Like, this is something you announced a long time ago, and he did not have a follow-up to that. But to me, you can look at it and say, okay, well, that's a bad thing because maybe that's been pushed on the back burner. But you can also look at it from the other way and say, if the thing's not coming together, it's not coming together. And maybe it needs to come together later, or with a different vision, or with a different creative team. And so when I see stuff like that, it does give me hope that there is a lot of creative force behind this. Clearly, James Gunn is in the driver's seat. And I think his creative vision, again, were, I think, rightfully skeptical at the beginning on how he was going to take on this new role. And we still have not even seen a film yet in the DCU. There's still a lot that we have to see, we have to see Superman, we have to see Lanterns first. But at least on this early side of it, on this side of it, it does look interesting from this perspective. And I think as the intrigue continues to grow, and as we start to get the teaser trailer for Superman, Lanterns is still not coming until 2026. We've still got a long way. But I think I think as a DC fan, you have to be at least a little bit excited by some of this casting, and particularly this one.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, Scotty. I think that this is my most anticipated DCU project they've announced. It just kind of hits all the things that I like, action adventure, kind of this team-up stuff. And I don't know Aaron Pierre, but it sounds like he has kind of a following. Even still, I'd say he's not a household name. I think that's probably fair to say. And that mirrors his character, going with the seasoned Hal Jordan and Kyle Chandler, who, even though I've never seen Friday Night Lights, I know who Kyle Chandler is. Like, you just, that show was so big for so long that it really is speaking to the characters they're supposed to play. So I think it's exciting, and I'm here for these breath of fresh air in terms of actors coming up, because I think we've talked about before, in all of these franchises, we miss that like unknown actor coming to some of these roles and really being able to make it their own, and being able to kind of embody the character whole cloth, which when we were doing one-off stuff back in the day, that didn't happen so much. And so this looks like a really strong step towards making something that's Green Lantern focused that's really good.
All right, well, up next, Disney isn't shying away from leaning into projects that feel like surefire hits right now, and their updated release schedule reflects that. Both the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie and Freakier Friday, reuniting Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, have 2025 release dates, with Stitch coming first in May and the Freaky Friday sequel in August. Excitement follows both films, with Freakier Friday taking a look at a grown-up Anna, played by Lohan, and Lilo and Stitch featuring a blend of live-action and CGI that will feature original Stitch actor Chris Sanders. Will we shill for these movies that continue to lean on our own nostalgia?
Okay, so nobody take my Disney card, but I've never seen either of these movies in totality. But we drew straws, and this was the one I got. However, let's just always bear in mind that this follows exactly what Bob Iger said he was going to do when he came back to Disney. He was going to make sequels, and he was going to lean on nostalgia. And look what he's doing. The live action remake things, I thought he wanted to shelve those for some reason. I feel like we said that back in the day, but maybe I just cooked that up in my head at this point. I can't remember. But Lilo and Stitch is happening, so we're getting more of this blend of live action and CGI, and that's just going to happen a lot with some of these classic Disney remakes. And then Freakier Friday, I think, will really bring people out in droves, because, again, don't take my Disney card, but like I didn't have the Disney Channel growing up. We don't need to talk about it, but I remember people just loving this movie. And I mean, Lindsay Lohan in her heyday, like as a millennial, she was our it girl for so long. And so I can really see people loving these and coming out to see them. And I think Disney's box office performance the last 2 years with their sequels is saying exactly that this is going to be the hit that Iger wants it to be.
Haley, I appreciate your candor there, because while I have seen Lilo and Stitch, I can't say with 100% confidence that I've ever seen Freaky Friday all the way through. It was one of those ones that I caught on TV. So that being said, I remember how strong the marketing was. Like from the trailer, like Jamie Lee Curtis as Lindsay Lohan's character, like this line just lives rent free in my brain. But when she's like, "Fun sucker," you could tell that was a performance and a character that like really resonated with people, and I think it resonated with both of them as well. Like just as they're starting to make the tours talking about this project coming together. Not so much Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't think she really lost anything, but Lindsay Lohan, not to disparage her, but it seems the most lively and energetic she's been about a project in a really long time. So in that sense, I'm excited for it. As far as the Lilo and Stitch live action film goes, quote unquote live action, because Stitch doesn't exist, so I guess I just hope that
they should go full practical.
Yeah, he's out there somewhere.
You got to puppet this thing. You really miss an opportunity.
Yeah,
such a different vibe if he was like a lumbering slow puppet instead of like.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to the Disney live actions, my hope is that they lean more towards like the Jungle Book from 2016 and further away from like The Lion King from 2019, where it's a shot-for-shot remake. And as much as I have fond memories of that Lilo and Stitch movie, I don't remember all that much about it. It wasn't one that I play like that, got a lot of replay in my house. I remember the animated series on the Disney Channel, like my siblings watching that a fair amount. But I do think it's important as like Disney expanded and moved away from like always having a white protagonist. That was one of the first ones to be inclusive with like the Hawaiian culture. And I really remember the music and just like the colors on display, making it seem like a magical and fantastical place. So if they can capture all of that, and the fact that, to your point, what you talked about with Aaron Pierre there, Haley, the fact that they're bringing in newcomers, unestablished names, if we're going to do these, at least make it be a platform for people to, have burgeoning careers and success.
Yeah, the sequel to Freaky Friday has been talked about for a really long time. Like, even after the movie initially came out, that was a discussion. Like, when are we going to get a follow-up to this movie? When are we going to get Freaky Friday 2? And it just never came together. Lindsay Lohan's career went in a very weird direction in the years following Freaky Friday and kind of took some turns, but it's really gotten back. She's had some really interesting career rehabilitation over the last few years. She's been in very small projects. She was in like the cheesy Netflix Christmas movies and like the Hallmark movies and things like that, started appearing in some of those. And then it just feels like the right time. Like, it feels like, Jamie Lee Curtis went back, did Halloween, went back and did that whole thing. And then now you've got Lindsay Lohan sort of seemingly on the right career path, and it just feels right now. It wouldn't have felt right maybe even like 8-9 years ago, just where they both were in life and in careers. It just wouldn't have worked, I think. But now you've got millennials who are getting a little bit older. They have fond memories of that movie. Maybe they're thinking about sharing it with their own children or people who are younger in their own life, and it just kind of feels right. Now, I don't know what we're going to do plot-wise, because like just switching their brains again feels kind of like it won't work or go off the right way. It's like, okay, we're just going to do it again. But again, it's if you can get the right creative team behind it, it can be fun. And I think it will. It's one of those movies. It's kind of like what we talked about with Beetlejuice. Like, people have an appetite for this kind of stuff, like movies that were big for them growing up, and then they see the sequel several years later. They do come out for that if it's the right thing. I mean, Beetlejuice really, it was a showcase of that in some ways that we just saw. And as far as Lilo and Stitch goes, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I don't want to see us keep going down this path of shot for shot live action remakes. It feels, and I think the people are tired of it too. Like I think we've seen that. I mean, The Lion King made $1 billion. People came out for that, but I feel like that is where the conversation started. That is where people started saying, "I just went and saw this, but it was just The Lion King." And then the conversation continued with like The Little Mermaid, and you saw some big changes to The Little Mermaid, like some new songs and some things like that, but still there was a lot of that shot for shot, and still, again, it didn't like tank it or anything, but the conversation just continued. Like, what is the point? Like I heard a lot of people saying that type of stuff, like, why can't I just watch the original? Like, what's the point of making a live action remake? And so I think Disney in some ways does have to address that at some point if we're going to keep doing this, if we're going to keep bringing in these live action remakes. We know the Rachel Zegler Snow White is in the can. We know that that's coming at some point. So we're not done with these, like you all said. And it's just, I think the people have an appetite for it, but it's got to be under the right circumstances.
Yeah. Has anybody here seen Borderlands?
No.
God, no.
Not many people at all have seen Borderlands, from what I understand.
If any of us had, I thought maybe Scoots had just like... because you like the games, and you had talked about maybe going, right?
Yeah, the games are okay, and if had the word of mouth not been god awful, I would have checked it out.
Right. I was hoping somebody had seen it, so we wouldn't just be bandwagoning on the bad press. But like, no, it's totally good. But so Jamie Lee Curtis, after Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Bear. Both
good call.
Really,
yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtisance is happening right now, and so when Borderlands was the first trailer I saw for it, little teaser, I was like, oh man, a like sci-fi video game adaptation with Jamie Lee Curtis. She's picking all great roles lately. This is going to be wonderful, and then it's just nothing but terrible press for that movie. And so like I'm in a weird place where I want to believe this is going to be great, or like a good return to form for these two to go back, but then like Borderlands is really screwing me up. Like I'm completely like, maybe like I was really thinking Jamie Lee Curtis had like hit her stride and was only going to pick and then Borderlands is this the narrative changed for me.
She's the problem with Borderlands though.
for sure it's just that
she's probably not.
She's earned a mulligan. No. We'll give her a
she's
mulligan.
Earned a mulligan. Oh yeah, for sure.
More than one.
Yeah, definitely.
I just I had gotten to the point where I was like, anything she's in, I will go see. And after hearing all the bad things of Borderlands, okay, maybe not. So yeah, and like Lindsay Lohan was not a draw for me, anymore. But like, I'm hoping this is a good turn for both of them in these roles, coming back to it.
Yeah. I know we wanted to keep this episode short, but while we have a little bit of extra time here, does anybody recall how Lindsay Lohan was involved with a lawsuit with Rockstar around GTA 5 about she thought they were using her likeness?
As one of the...
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so just thinking about that, I had to make the joke, we got Freakier Friday before we got GTA 6.
Something about the nostalgia of these movies, I don't know, this is like such a random thought, but I was scrolling Instagram before the show, and there's all of these accounts of people doing reenactments of movies or parodies reenactments of movies. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I think it's like stirring up some of the nostalgia for some of this stuff because people are really loving to watch that content, which I watch it and I enjoy a lot of it. And then I think, y'all are buying all these wigs and all these costumes and this is wild. Like, these videos must be making you bank to get all this stuff to do it. But like, I just scrolled by that one that was from The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan. And I'm like, God, I love that movie. Like, that was, baby Lindsay Lohan was like everything to me at the time. And so there's kind of this like movement outside of Hollywood that's happening on the internet, on TikTok and Instagram, that is kind of driving us to want this nostalgia, in my opinion, which I find fascinating as part of the human experience.
Well, we saw that with Mean Girls. Like, speaking of Lindsay Lohan, like Mean Girls blew up on TikTok and people were like taking scenes from it and and then TikTok released it in shorts, the whole movie.
Oh, really?
Like in short,
my goodness.
They put the whole movie out in like couple minute clips, and it was just one right after the other where you could essentially watch the entire movie. And you got to think, like, who's on TikTok? Well, it's a lot of younger people who weren't really around whenever that movie was big, but that movie holds up, and they see it and they laugh at it and then they want to check it out. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. I mean, I think the social media drive of nostalgia is powerful, and especially on these like short form content social media, which is where we are now. There's a powerful tool there that can be used to stir up certain things that'll translate to real dollars at the box office.
Because now I'm in tinfoil hat territory. I'm like, well, why was he doing the Parent Trap thing? Was it because Disney's paying him to be like, start drumming up nostalgia for Lindsay Lohan? Like, I would totally believe that, honestly, to be like, okay, so we're going to start doing the Parent Trap, you guys. Like, getting all the influencers together.
Or just like test
start
it out.
doing these scenes.
Do one of these scenes and see if it happens. See if it like pops off.
Okay, next let's do Herbie Fully Loaded.
I believe the Bears and the Jaguars, I'm trying to remember which NFL teams were playing this weekend in London, but somebody scored a touchdown, the Bears, I think, and they did the Parent Trap handshake. And I was like, you guys are like 22 years old football players. Like, you weren't even around for that movie. How do you know about the Parent Trap handshake? There's NFL games in London every
There's
year.
a big push to make the NFL
Munich
overseas.
and Mexico City.
Money, baby.
And Brazil. There was one in Brazil this year. Yeah, they're trying to go international.
Mexico, everywhere.
Interesting. Okay, up next, Fandango announced that Wicked pre-sales, which went live last week for the November 22nd release, are only second this year behind pre-sales for Deadpool and Wolverine. This also puts Wicked at the highest for advanced ticket sales this year for a PG-rated movie and the third of all time in that category. Standing up against Disney films Frozen 2 and 2019's The Lion King. In the box office race this year, Disney seems to be king of Cinderella's castle, but does Warner Brothers have a chance to make a run against the entertainment titan?
Yeah, Wicked is not messing around. I mean, going out and claiming this sort of title with pre-sales, I personally am a little bit surprised by. I kind of expected to be the It movie of Thanksgiving to be Gladiator 2, which opens the same day as Wicked. And we've talked on this podcast before about the potential for another Barbenheimer situation, and I think Hollywood is eyeing that too. I think they haven't quite figured out the recipe for a Barbenheimer situation. But I think there is a very tentative attempt to recreate the situation that was that. And again, it's tricky because you can't outright say you're doing a Barbenheimer because we as the people will punish you. It's like whenever you put Morbius back in theaters and we punished you. We will do the same if you try to reenact Barbenheimer because that was our thing, that was not your thing. And that's the trick. You have to make it believe that it was our idea. It's like an Inception situation. You have to implant the memory into us and then the Barbenheimer happens. But ultimately, it shows us that there's a healthy box office, that people want to go see this. It's a musical. And those are kind of tricky at the box office sometimes. They don't always have great returns. And it's going off of something that has a fandom, like people like the Broadway performance, but will they show up for that on screen? Like that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other jump you have to make. So it's got those types of things that it's got to go around, which is why at the beginning I thought, okay, this will do fine, but I didn't really see it as being like up there in terms of like your top 5 or whatever of the year in terms of the box office. But now I'm not so sure. Like we're kind of seeing that maybe families are choosing this one for Thanksgiving for that week. And I think if you're Paramount and you're releasing Gladiator 2, you're a little bit nervous about this. You're looking at your own pre-sales for Gladiator 2 and saying maybe there isn't as much appetite for this as we thought originally, and maybe the appetite is there for this other product. But what I think is great about what Wicked is doing and why I think that this is happening is because they are doing the marketing that Barbie did. So if you remember back when Barbie was leading up to Barbie, we were talking about it every week because they had these like weird marketing stunts. Like they had the Airbnb that was a Barbie house, and we talked about that. And then they were releasing clothing lines and makeup lines and all these products. And so you saw the TV spots and the trailers, and those are effective. But really, it was the other stuff. It was this is an experience stuff that was really starting to get drummed up behind the scenes. And so when that movie hit, we talked about it at length. Like, it was an experience. You had to be there. It was a party. If you didn't come, you were going to miss it. And so people came. They went to the theater and they saw it. And I think Wicked is following a very similar playbook. If you go look at the merchandise around Wicked right now, it's all over the place and it's great. Like, they have clothing, they have like a whole shoe line, there's like a whole makeup line. It all leans into like the green and the pink sort of like dichotomy of the two characters. Like, it's very artfully designed. And so you have that type of push. And I feel like that's the key. It's like setting the board. Like, people are starting to see the merch. They're getting interested in, hey, this is a party. This is like the Taylor Swift Eras tour in the theater, or the Barbenheimer in the theater, or whatever, where if you're not there, you miss the party, you know? And so to me, it's clearly paying off, and I just see a lot of similarities here between what Barbie was able to do and what this film can do. It's really working on drumming up its crowd through merchandising, because I'll be honest, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of trailers for this on TV. I've seen some, for sure. Like, I see some TV spots here and there, but I feel like I've seen very little in terms of like marketing for this movie on the screen, but I've seen a lot of it in the merchandise. But I don't know, I think that might be better, you know? So it's a really interesting case in marketing. And I think when we finally do get to talk about this box office, Gladiator 2 and Wicked, it's going to be a really interesting conversation, right? And I think we hope that they both do well, and that we just sort of see that Barbenheimer kind of rising tides lift all boats situation. But I don't know. I think if you're Paramount, you're kind of a little nervous that maybe this is going to steal your thunder a little bit.
I just don't see it. I don't see a movie about like witches going off to school being like popular ever. You know, it's never happened before.
Glenda knows about like popular.
There's no history for it, so
there's just no track record for this kind of thing, and I just don't see it. That's my take. No, I mean, I'm excited for this. I saw Wicked live on stage when it came through here and through town, and it's great. Great musical, and yeah, I like Ariana Grande a lot, so I think I'm excited for this. Just really pumped, and the fact that it got so many pre-sales makes total sense to me. I think for some reason, you know, when the original Gladiator came out, there weren't as many movies going through the pipeline. I think that movie had a little bit of time to be known as a movie that like appealed to a broader audience. It feels, I don't know that. I definitely think that people who really love the old Gladiator will probably go see the new one, but I don't know that it's going to have the same like appeal across the spectrum as the old one did. Like, I just remember Gladiator when I was in high school or whatever. That movie was just, everyone liked it and everyone was going to see it multiple times. It's really popular back then. But I don't know. So yeah, this will be really interesting to watch and see if they can pull off you go dressed as a gladiator and a witch. Go as your favorite, you know, whatever.
I think in the race of Wicked against Gladiator 2, Wicked's going to come out on top by a mile and then some, and then you'll float off in a little bubble like Glinda. Mm-hmm. And Jay, you're right. The marketing isn't on your television screens. It's on social media. Like, Wicked is all over my algorithm because, of course it is, for one reason, but because I'm talking about it, like, with my friends, and they're doing really smart short content dropping, like we were talking about earlier, with the interviews from the cast. They're doing Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo as a pair. They're really putting them together and doing that kind of marketing, kind of like they did with Margot and Ryan Gosling for Barbie. And then they're being sneaky, and like last Friday, I think it was, they dropped a clip of Jonathan Bailey singing part of Dancing Through Life, and people just lost their minds on the internet. And they're like, Jonathan Bailey sings? And I'm like, of course Jonathan Bailey sings. Like, but it's funny to see this like conversation that's going on social media about this movie, because people are hyped AF. And yeah, the merch is crazy. My best friend texted me on Sunday and she was like, I just bought a Wicked Stanley at Target. And I was like, yes, I saw those. I'm not going to go do that, but I support you. It's crazy. They have a Stanley. Like, that's crazy. It's awesome. It looks real. And I think it looks great.
Yeah, for sure.
aesthetically. I'm still not fully on the Ariana train, but she has such a huge following from people that I think that's helping the momentum of this movie a lot. And then it's surrounded by this really strong cast of people who can hold their own in a movie like this. And so Wicked resurgence, because when that musical came out in 2005, I think, oh my God, it was like just everything. If you were a theater kid, that Wicked was it on a stick, basically. So now enough time has gone by, it's been almost 20 years, that this movie is really tapping into that nostalgia we were talking about earlier with people our age who are millennials who grew up with it and now want to go see it for themselves or with their families, and Thanksgiving's the perfect time to do that.
Well, it's not only tapping into that generation's nostalgia, but the generation who knows the original Wizard of Oz, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, you know, it's
iconography.
nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen Wicked, so I'm the uncultured swine here. I apologize. So, with that in mind,
you haven't seen Lilo and Stitch. You haven't seen Wicked. You haven't seen Freaky Friday.
I have seen Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, okay, I got the wires crossed. Sorry.
But, you got your uncultured swines crossed.
In terms of this discussion we're having about the marketing and what kind of presence it has, as far as my algorithm and my feed goes, I have not seen as much of the marketing, but that kind of stands to reason. Never seen the movie, not talking about it all that much, but I did get my first taste of marketing outside of the trailers when I went to the theater this weekend to see Saturday Night. AMC, they're doing their, you know how they always have some kind of promotional thing about turn off your phone. Theirs is all Wicked themed, so you have Jeff Goldblum as the wizard. No texting, no talking. No taking phone calls. It was pretty great. But looking at these pre-sales, and they are impressive pre-sales, it does make me question what is the overall story of this movie going to be, because it has the potential of opening like some of the MCU movies where it opening weekend it does gangbusters and it just kind of drops off because everybody that was interested saw it that first weekend. But the difference there is musicals always get a lot of repeat viewings. Like you look at things like Les Mis, The Greatest Showman. Well, I think I don't know Les Mis's opening off the top of my head, but I know Greatest Showman in particular was definitely one where it won its money back in the weeks and months as it clawed and stayed so popular. So I think it's really going to come down to how well the songs are adapted, how much people enjoy them and want to sing along and have those repeat viewings and stuff like that. But I am a little concerned as well because we're talking about all this marketing. As far as I know, this is still a part one, and that has not been broadcast in any of this marketing. Wow. So I do think they have the potential of disappointing and maybe even irritating some people, because that, you know, as much as Across the Spider-Verse was lauded, there were people that were a little upset. Like they went into it not knowing that it was going to be a cliffhanger, and we still don't know when that second part or the third part's coming out rather. So the other part here, my source is Wikipedia, so you know, take it with a grain of salt, but I'm looking at the runtime, 160 minutes. That's 2 hours and 40 minutes. If that's true, I don't know how much it's going to be able to have repeat viewings. Like that's a long movie. They're only going to have so many screenings that they can do. So if it's popular enough, they'll make room for it. But at the end of the day, I do think it will have a higher opening than Gladiator, but I'll be curious to see in the long run, as far as box office and even awards contention, who we'll be talking about, you know, at the end of the year and early next year.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is such like a strange time too on our story of the year in the box office, because like, I mean, I grew up going to movies on Thanksgiving night and the day after Thanksgiving, like Black Friday and all of that, and I think a lot of people did. That was you know, releasing movies on Thanksgiving, like it's a family thing. Like you go out with maybe your family or maybe a couple of your friends, or like if you're a teenager with your parents or whatever, like, and seeing a movie. Like that was something I grew up doing, and I know a lot of people are in that same boat. And so I think you got two very different choices here. You know, you got this, they're both similar because they both have the nostalgia draw. Like Gladiator, I mean, that movie came out like 20 years ago, you know, like it's been a while, but there's that nostalgia pool. I can just see like a lot of dads on Thanksgiving who are in their like 40s and 50s just being like getting people together, like, oh, you've never seen Gladiator? Like my kid's 18, 19, 20 years old now. Like I want to introduce them to this and take them to Gladiator too. But same thing, like I can see so many people who like Ariana Grande. I mean, she's like a cultural icon. I mean, she's a draw. Like she's going to get people out. And so I can see like groups of people wanting to go see that. So it's just, again, though, it's that question, what one do you need to see first? Like, what's the event? I just feel like Wicked's the event. Like, I feel like people are going to want to go for the event. People are going to see Gladiator 2. I think it'll have a fine box office. But to me, it does sort of feel a little bit like a maybe second weekend, maybe third weekend, maybe type thing. Not in the same vein as maybe Wicked is sort of a, we've been building up to this. We've been following this, like you said, Haley. We've been pelted in our algorithms with it for a long time, and we want to join in on that conversation. I don't know if you're really getting the same sort of content and lead up with Gladiator. So again, it's a fascinating just duality here of two movies and strategy. And will it help both? Will it hurt one? You know, what happens with that? We've seen examples of both. We've seen examples of movies hurting each other, and we've seen examples like Barbenheimer of them helping each other. So it's just it's an interesting case study.
I could see Wicked having a lot of staying power, first because of its PG rating, but like they're releasing it late enough in the year that, okay, so when Haley was in high school and Hairspray came out with Zac Efron and John Travolta and Nikki Blonsky, I thought I died and gone to heaven. And I went to see it 5 times in theaters, like because they're releasing it so late in the year when students will be out of school. You know, not too long into December after this movie comes out, I think there will be a lot of repeat viewings then during the holiday season. And Gladiator, I think, will have some staying power, but I think the reception for that initial trailer for it, unfortunately, fell kind of flat. So I don't know if they're revamping their marketing, but I feel like I haven't really seen anything since then.
Shouldn't have used Kanye.
Yeah, people hated the Kanye song.
They really did.
I am shocked at the 2 hours and 40-minute runtime, if that's accurate. I'm seeing that too online, but it just says from a recent update. So I don't know if that's. I'm hoping that's not accurate because the play runtime is 2 hours and 45 minutes. So if they're taking a 2 hour and 45 minute play and breaking it into 2-3 hour movies, it's like, oh, this is Hobbit territory.
Again, I'm not overly familiar with the story of Wicked. I mean, I've had enough exposure to it over the years that I get an idea, but from what I understand is the 2-film goal here is to incorporate more elements from The Wizard of Oz for the more casual audience to be like, oh, Dorothy, oh, you know, Scarecrow, yada, yada.
Well, and probably from the book version of Wicked, which is what it's based off of.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could definitely see it, and I could see like a more rich world being built than just the more streamlined musical, but like, yeah, I don't know. Like you said, I didn't even know it was a part 1. I'd forgotten that until you mentioned it a minute ago. Whew. How was Saturday night?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I wonder how it'll land with general audiences, though, like especially those. Like, I'm not even a diehard SNL fan, but I still appreciated it for the performances. Like, Dylan O'Brien is doing legendary work as Dan Aykroyd. I think his name is Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase is inspired. So I got a kick out of it for that sense. And the narrative structure is pretty unique as well. It's like all of the frantic and fervor that happens as they make it to 11:30 for that first live show. Mm-hmm. So it was a good time.
Yeah. It looks really good. I really want to make it out to it. Okay, guys. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We got lots more show to come. Lots of lightning round stuff, our Spotify poll, all that right after this. Welcome back to Multiverse News. So if you like this show and you don't like the ads, the thing you just heard, you can avoid it by going to patreon.com/multiverse newscast, support the show, and you don't have to listen to the ads. It's pretty great. How about we talk about the Spotify poll that we've got this week? Our Spotify poll was, do you want Andrew Garfield's Spidey to return? And we asked people for 1-sentence pitches in the comments. So 86% of you said yes, and 13% said no. What do you guys think of that breakdown?
I just want to know what it's like to be part of the 13%, you know? Like, what's it like to just be like, you know what, I'm good. No, I don't like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. Didn't care for it. I just want to hear from you. I just want to know why. You know, I'm not even being critical. It's just like, what's it like to be you? You know.
Send us a voice note to the email.
Stop othering the 13% there.
Well, I was thinking we've had a number of polls in the past that were pretty one-sided, but this might be the most dominating,
I
one
think
answer
so.
versus the other that we've ever had. 86 versus 13. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got a bunch of one-sentence pitches. Let's see what we got here. The Bookworm guy says, an incursion occurs between Miles and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man universes following Beyond the Spider-Verse. Live-action Miles and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man team up to try to stop it, but are ultimately engulfed in a white light battle world.
That's fun.
I like it.
I can
Who Framed
100%
Roger
see that.
Rabbit Spider-Man style.
Yes. They did a little of that. They did a little of that in the last Spider-Verse. Maybe we'll see some more. Okay. In Kendall says, the front page of the Daily Bugle says, New York's greatest philanthropist murdered by the its greatest masked villain. And the second story visible on the front page reads, The Legacy of Wilson Fisk. Ooh. That's fun. That's fun. I mean, it's very similar to the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, where he's killed
Mysterio, sure.
Mysterio.
Or he's been framed for it anyway.
It's so hard for me not to say Mephisto.
Yeah, I was trying to say I was trying not to say Mephisto too. Okay, I like that. I like that though. It's good. A suspense thriller where we don't know exactly what happened, told from the point of view of the detective who is investigating the murder. Oh, I think this is part of the same one. Sorry, in Kindle's.
Yeah.
I did not. I was reading this separate, but so the murder of Wilson Fisk and a suspense thriller told from the point of view of the detective who is investigating Wilson Fisk's murder. That's definitely different. That sounds like a lot of fun. Just I always thought that would be better than we've seen it so far, and just like in the world of Marvel or in the world of DC, having a story of just the street level people like living their lives, doing some, and like still having some interactions with the superheroes, but it's not like the main thing. They're not the heroes of the story, as it were.
It's kind of like that classic episode of the Batman the Animated Series where it's all the villains talking about almost got him.
Yeah, love that one. I threw a rock at him. Love that one. Meech said, I would like Andrew Garfield to return as Amazing Spider-Man, and I feel like he is, because while I don't have a lot of evidence, and we know that Null lives in the void between universes, Tom Hardy's Venom is in the Amazing Spider-Man multiverse. Everything CGI related, contrast, color scheme, lighting matches. I think this is it. It's more of a conspiracy theory than a pitch.
Based on the director of Venom: The Last Dance's recent comments, you might be onto something there. And Jay totally called it when he said this was not going to be the end of Null.
No, this is the pitch. You're gonna go to this movie being like, oh yeah, Null, baby, but then he's gonna show up in the last 5 minutes and be like, I'll get you next time, Spider-Man.
Wait, Spider-Man's not in this. I'll get you next time, Spider-Man. All right, Sonny Tetris has one he wants read in trailer voice. In a world where Spider-Man lost everything important to him, Peter Parker made a choice. For the first time ever on screen, Spidey chooses to don the black suit. A black suit to send a message to his enemies. A message that in the darkness, deep in the shadows, where vengeance lurks, there may be the light turned to darkness, ready to pounce. He's no longer pulling punches, no longer making quips. Villains all fear the dark arachnite.
We're already getting Spider Noir, okay? So we don't know if we need another one.
I would really just love to see that time period, though, of just the dark Spider-Man coming through it, and maybe ends with him heading off to No Way Home world or whatever. All right, JX Sizzle says, I would be happy having him even just be a voice in Beyond the Spider-Verse, honestly.
Absolutely.
I think that's a no-brainer. No-brainer. I still really want Jake Johnson to make the leap to live action.
Oh, yeah.
And play Peter B. Parker in live action. would make so much sense. Please,
Sure.
do it. If Sony, if you do another big like multiversal crossover, like No Way Home style, just have Peter B. Parker show up in live action as Jake Johnson. It'd be so good. Super Kodu, last one here, says a story about Spidey that didn't pull any punches, and it's set between Amazing Spider-Man 2 and No Way Home. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. I dig it. Definitely.
Who would you want to most see him beat up on?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like who was it that got his girlfriend killed at the end of the second
Well, it's his
Spider-Man
best friend
movie?
Harry.
It was Harry. Yeah, I think it'd have to be Harry. I think that would be like the big, like he'd have to actually like kill Harry, or like come so close that it like drives him back from the edge or whatever. Be dark. Like he's fighting through other villains to get to his friend Harry, and just like hurting them all. All right, well, let's turn to the lightning round. The lightning round is where I'm going to read a story, and we are going to just one at a time, or one person is going to comment on it by chiming in with their name as a buzzer, and then once you buzz in, you get to comment on that story, and if you want, once per lightning round, you get a rebuttal. Here we go. Daniel Ezra, who previously starred in Netflix's All-American, has joined the cast of Paramount and Edgar Wright's The Running Man and will star alongside Glenn Powell and Katie O'Brien.
Scotty, quietly but surely this film is getting a stacked cast. So I like Stephen King adaptations by and large. I do, I have to have a healthy amount of skepticism because some of them aren't great. But you look at Glenn Powell, you look at Katie O'Brien, and the addition of this new member here, I think it looks like it's going to be good.
Henry Cavill has signed on to star in Voltron at Amazon MGM Studios, a live-action film based on the 1980s animated TV series that followed a team of space explorers who pilot a giant super robot known as Voltron and was adapted from several Japanese anime TV series from Toei Animation.
Scotty, I didn't grow up on Voltron. It was a little before my time, both the animated series and the toys. But I did catch the first season of the Netflix show. I think it was DreamWorks Animation by way of Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't stick with it, but I really liked that first season. I thought it was a fresh imagining, had some great character work, great animation. So it's a property that I'm interested in while I'm not super, super familiar with it. I mean, giant robot lions formed together to create a fighter. That sounds pretty cool to me. But what I focus in on here is Henry Cavill. Like, it's just so clear that he's such a geek. Like, he could be doing anything that he wants, but he keeps choosing these properties. The Witcher, because he was passionate about it. Warhammer 40K, and now Voltron. So I don't know if it's going to pan out wonderfully for him, but I certainly hope him being attached to it gets more butts and seats and it goes the distance.
Hit Netflix rom-com series Nobody Wants This, starring Adam Brody and Kristen Bell, has been renewed for a second season. Jenny Connor and Bruce Eric Kaplan, who executive produced HBO's Girls, have come on board as executive producers and showrunners for season 2. Matt, show's really great. I just finished season 1. Really, really great. Really hooked me, and I'm still hooked. I want a season 2, so I'm very excited to hear this. Really, really great news. And I highly recommend it. It's just like a good love story, but not only about love. It's like more about love and life and the balance and, just good character building and good stuff. Dig it a lot.
The internet sensation for this show is people discovering, oh my God, his name just, Seth Cohen is his OC name.
Oh,
Adam Brody.
Yeah.
And it's funny because everybody my age is like, I knew him back when he was Seth Cohen. It's hilarious. The reels are cracking me up.
It's funny. Horror slasher Terrifier 3 opened ahead of the expectations this weekend to take the number 1 spot at the box office, pulling in over $18 million domestically, while Joker 2 had a historic drop-off of 81% in its second weekend, only taking in $7 million domestically.
Jay, I'm tired of seeing the clown. I don't like him. I am tired of seeing him. Every time he pops up on Facebook, I click show less, and he still keeps coming into all of my spaces. Don't like his teeth or his general look. But, horror movies are having a moment, and this is one that, was not and none of these are really for me. I'm not really the target audience.
I thought you meant the Joker. I did not know the Terrifier was about
they're
a
both
clown.
about clowns. Sorry, I should have been more specific.
I was like, man,
we get it, Jay. You hated
well.
Joker too.
I'll
realize
get
how badly you
to
hated
Joker
it.
2 in a minute, but this I'm always kind of like roll my eyes at movies that are like, this movie was so gross that everybody left the theater barfing, and like you'll never be able to handle it ever, or whatever. Like I always just like I'm just like, okay, with that type of thing. But the numbers speak for themselves. This movie's getting a fourth. It's going to get a fourth movie, and it's already been confirmed. And people are into it, and they love they love what they're seeing. So more power to them. But to address Joker 2, I simply only must tell you when this movie's coming to digital, which was announced today by Variety.
Man.
They did follow up that this movie is estimated to lose Warner Brothers between $150 and $200 million total.
Ooh.
They really need Wicked to do well.
It is coming to digital for you to own on October 29th.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Man.
that is like I'm trying to think when The Fall Guy came to this might be faster than that. Like this might be the
That was like
fastest
2
that
weeks.
we've seen. Yeah, I need to go back and look because I can't remember. I remember The Fall Guy. We just all sat around and we were like, holy crap, that's the fastest we've ever seen. This is right there. I mean, October 29th, like they are trying to get out of this thing as fast as they can and get this thing to where people can buy it on digital if they want to buy it on digital.
Whew, that's terrible. And it's just terrible because I was still thinking about going to see it, but now I know it's going to be digital so soon. Like that ruins my motivation. But I guess it's that math of like while it's still fresh, more people might buy it if they see it on their theaters at home, or I don't know. It's crazy.
This is the morph of the day and date release. Now it's if your movie bombs, you release it on digital sooner.
Right.
Yep.
Get to digital as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Tiny but just to plug, friend of the show, both Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater, they just covered all of the Terrifier films. So if that is up your alley, tread lightly, but go check them out and support them.
If you like the clown and you are not like me, I'm just tired of seeing him. He's just in
The
my
clown
face all the
likes
time.
you, Jay.
I've tried to make it known to the algorithm. Stop showing me this. And it keeps showing it to
It
me.
wants you. You have no power here. The algorithm is not under your control.
Oof. Clown looks scary. I just looked him up because I had no idea Terrifier was a clown.
I am, and sorry, I know we're trying to make this a true lightning round, but I must say that I do not really see horror movies in theaters. They're just not really for me. I just don't really like horror movies that much. But what I do like to do is read the plots of horror movies on Wikipedia because I do want to know what happens. And so I did go read the plot for Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2, and I was like, this confirms that this is not something that I want to see on the screen.
All right, Radio Silence Productions is returning to a sequel to 2019 cult horror film Ready or Not. Star of the first film, Samara Weaving, will return for the sequel, and Guy Busick and Ryan Murphy, who wrote the original, will return to write.
Scotty, Radio Silence moving away from the Scream franchise, it kind of makes sense for them to return to something that's kind of a proven entity for them. That being said, I don't know how necessary this is, and we could say that about any sequel, but that 2019 film really did feel like a singular experience, and without spoiling it the way it ended, I don't really see how they would continue the story, or I guess they could, but it would just be something maybe tonally the same, but in terms of the narrative, it would have to be something a little different there. So, and we'll have to wait to see more, get a trailer, get some footage, get an idea what the plot's going to be like, and then I'll make my judgment then.
Tiny Butt, they've been talking about this on Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater for a while because we covered it. It was my gateway movie that Ashley made me watch to be on their show for Abigail. And I don't see where a sequel can happen, but it's fun. So if they can capture the same feeling of that movie that was fun and really that black comedy, that dark humor, then sure, we'll see.
Yeah, Seth Cohen popped up in that one too.
He sure did.
Apple TV Plus has released the first trailer for Silo Season 2, starring Rebecca Ferguson. The series debuts on November 15th.
Scotty, I think we are all here excited for Silo Season 2.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that first
Trailer
two
looks
episodes is really good.
You've only seen the first episode, is what you said.
Yeah, like the first two. I've seen two. And I was like, those were really good. But I always, I make the mistake, not a mistake, but it is, make the mistake of starting a show with my fiance, and then we like, okay, that's a show we're watching. Like, we both have our shows, but we're watching that one. And then we have like a week where we can't watch a TV show together because we're just so busy. And then we're like, what were we watching? I don't even remember. So we got to get back on it.
All right.
Fun fact, the source material for Silo, called Wool, not Silo, is on Kindle Unlimited right now. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
The hunt is on for a host for the upcoming Oscars, and sources tell Deadline that the tentative plan is to use an ensemble of rotating hosts, and ABC has approached Amy Poehler, Dwayne Johnson, and the duo of Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman about hosting the show. Matt, I feel like asking Hugh Jackman to host after they started a campaign to try to get him nominated feels like a way of being like, oh, buddy. Like, we're not going to nominate. You're not going to like be in serious contention for that, but you can host if you want to.
The only thing is that Hugh did just announce last week, I think he's doing like basically a variety show in New York City. So maybe they could tap into him from that angle. But of course, Ryan would have to be dragged along since he bitterly plays himself. I'm quoting my favorite listener ever.
Did I mention Mint Mobile?
I mean, The Rock, though, he does the same thing. He'll be up there drinking a Zoa Energy or whatever, just be like, I'm glad to be here at the Oscars. You know,
yeah, I don't like the Dwayne Johnson
Under
pull at
Armour
all.
And stuff. But a tiny but to say, Hugh Jackman has actually hosted the Oscars before. Now, it's been a while, but back in 2009, he did host the Oscars. It was he did the Greatest Showman thing. Like, if you've ever, and he had like well, I'm trying to remember. It's been so long, but like he had like a Wolverine call out somehow in like his Greatest Showman act or something. It's
The Greatest Showman wasn't out in 2009.
What am I thinking of?
I don't know, but not that.
Kind of
Les Mis.
Les Mis,
yeah, okay,
yeah.
that's
Like
what I'm thinking of.
2012.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. He did like some kind of musical performance or something. Like I should have looked all this up before we talked about this, but he's been in the position before. I mean, he's been in the hosting chair before. I don't remember the exact date, but
I think that's what he won his Emmy for, was hosting an awards show.
Yeah.
He'd be great. Like, he would be wonderful, and I'm sure he's done stuff like it. I feel like you can't host and win, right?
No, they don't really do that.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels a little bit like a slight to be like, anyway. Please host instead. Don't do that. Don't try to get Wolverine to be an Oscar winner. You can't win an Oscar with adamantium claws. I'm sorry. We're too pretentious for that. Apple TV Plus has renewed Gary Oldman-led spy drama series Slow Horses for a 6th season. A 5th season renewal was announced earlier this year. Matt,
Is this a show nobody had seen?
yeah, I have not seen this show, but I thought it was new. I like the last 3 weeks I have heard of Slow Horses a lot. I guess maybe there's a new season out or something because I've been hearing about it.
Season 4, I think pretty
okay,
sure is season 4, and they announced season 5, and so season 5 has not happened yet, but they've already announced season 6. So
I had not heard anything about this show, and then over the last 3 weeks, I have heard word of mouth really buzzing about it, which is cool. It kind of reminds me of Breaking Bad, where you're a few seasons in and you start the world starts catching on. Like, hey, you guys need to get over here and watch this show. So it makes me excited. But I had no idea it had 4 seasons, and when I saw 6th season, I was like, wow, how many seasons are this show already? Well, that I've never heard of until this week.
It gave me pause as well because I was like, I feel like I had never heard about this show at least a couple of years ago. And sure enough, it didn't come out until 2022. So it must be a situation where they're releasing multiple seasons a year or something like that. Yeah.
I wonder how many episodes per season. That's weird. 22 and they're in their 4th? That's weird.
It was probably one of Apple's first properties then.
Yeah, they do 6 episodes a season, and it looks like they did 2 seasons in 2022, a season in 2023, and then this season just started airing. Season 4, sorry. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, 6 episodes. That makes sense how they can, I guess, pump them out like that. Okay, let's get these last 3 in. Prime Video has released a teaser trailer. Sorry, my dog. Start barking. Shut up, dogs!
He's like, I like slow horses.
I watched it before you.
We've been telling you to watch this. You just haven't been paying attention, Matt. All right. Prime Video has released a teaser trailer for season 3 of Invincible and has set Thursday, February 6, 2025 for the season premiere.
Scotty, yeah, this trailer dropped today, and it was such a pleasant surprise. It followed the motif that was established with the season 2 trailer we got, where you have Mark Grayson, Invincible, sitting in a diner with another character having a very meta conversation about the new season. And that's just what I appreciated about it. They talked about how last season they had a mid-season break. So he's like, how about this time you don't take a vacation for like 2-3 months in the middle of things. So they did say that it's going to be dropping February 6th, I believe. And yeah, we'll get the full season week after week after week, not to have a break in between there. So yeah, nice. I think the first couple of seasons have been really strong, and it's one of Amazon's best offerings.
James Gunn confirmed on social media Tuesday that Krypto the Superdog will feature in upcoming Superman film. The announcement was made in celebration of Adopt a Shelter Dog Month this October.
Haley? I love dogs, and Krypto shoots laser out of his eyes, so that's amazing. And I bet that means they'll use a shelter dog that was, adopted and trained in Hollywood, which is happening a lot, which is cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to get in to say that if you haven't seen the post, you should go read the post, because James Gunn, he shares his story about his own dog, whose name is Ozu, that he adopted from a shelter, and he talked about how this dog lived in sort of a hoarder situation with like 60 other dogs and just in the backyard, and so they adopted this dog, and he said it basically like destroyed his home, like chewed up his laptop, like just like completely was ruining his life for a little bit of time. And he mentioned that there was conversation between him and his wife about how much harder it would be if this dog had superpowers, how it would just like completely wreck everything in their life. And he said that experience of having that dog really channeled a lot of his energy for this character, for having Superman's dog in this movie, and then to tie it back to adopt
James.
a shelter dog month. I mean, he knows that Joker 2's bombing, and he's like, hey, you guys like dogs? Look over here, look
the
away.
way you phrase that kind of makes it sound like he wants to take credit for the character of Krypto. Like, I don't know, that's so James Gunn.
Yeah. So yeah, and then it released like a cool promo image with it that I thought looked kind of nice of Superman and Krypto sitting on the moon and looking over Earth, and kind of cool look at the cape from the back and everything for upcoming Superman. So definitely a cool post, I think, overall.
Absolutely. Sony has set a release date for its upcoming Until Dawn video game adaptation film of April 25th, 2025. Until Dawn is directed by David F. Sandberg and was written by David Dauberman.
Scotty, I can go a couple of different ways on this one. On the one hand, Until Dawn, I think it came out in like 2014. It just had a remake that came out that people seem pretty happy about, so the timeliness is certainly there. But the concept of Until Dawn was it was a video game that was relishing the horror film experience. So it's kind of like we're reverse engineering the reverse engineering that's already happened. So do we really need a movie about a game that was steeped in tons of it was kind of like the Cabin of the Woods of like video games. It's like, let's have all these horror references and all these motifs. And so my fear is like, best case scenario, it might feel a little bit like a Cabin on the Woods or something like that. Worst case scenario, it's just another one of these, video game adaptations that doesn't go the distance. But that being said, we have talked about how video game adaptations do seem to be potentially the new quote unquote thing. And then lastly, I do look at David F. Sandberg. He got his start in horror. So with the unfortunate reception to Shazam! Fury of the Gods, it kind of makes sense for him to go back to those roots, like I said, and kind of do something he's a little more familiar with.
Well, and Gary Dauberman, too, he's basically responsible for writing the Conjuring universe. So he's
I
been
knew I
involved with
recognized
all
that
of
name.
those films, up and down all of the Conjuring films, which have been pretty well received for the most part. So off and on, but so there's experience behind it. An experienced horror writer, which I think bodes well for it.
Sweet. All right, well, that's our news for today, you guys. Thanks for joining us. We're gonna go around the panel and let everybody say what else they're doing right now on the internet. Jay Sisson.
Yeah, weekly as always at Commute the Podcast on Monday mornings. You can learn a couple interesting things on your way to work for about 20 minutes. And of course, over on Always Watching, we're covering The Penguin, and we just went through episode 4, which was, I think, my favorite of the season. The show is really starting to hit its stride. It's really developing these characters in these really interesting ways. We're taking longer looks at some of the side characters, and we're getting to talk about it all. So we kind of have a rotating group. Sometimes it's, Matt, Scotty, Zoo, and me, and we kind of just sub them out on who's available. But it's been a good time. And if you've been watching The Penguin, come over and check out Always Watching and hear our thoughts on it.
Absolutely. I didn't get to make it last night, and I'm mad about it because I definitely have thoughts. Haley Hobbs.
We continue Secret Wars coverage over on Source Pages. Brian and I read Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps this week, which was fun. Next week's our last one for a while. It's Future Imperfect, featuring the Hulk, and then we'll do our Agatha review after that. And then don't forget to catch Hate Watch on Sunday, October 19th at 1 p.m. Central. Ash and I will be watching Tarot. And if you're scaredy cat like Jay and like Haley,
you need to pitch it to me.
it'll be fine. It'll be fine because the volume is low and Ashley and I will be drinking and talking.
Okay, I'm convinced.
Jay Scotty.
Yeah, send me your Stitch impressions. Let's throw the gauntlet down. Let's see what you got.
We maybe we'll make that
Next
the Spotify
week,
poll
Stitch
next
off.
week. We'll do like some Stitch impressions without saying who they are, and let the audience choose A, B, C, or D. I like that. Let's do that.
But yeah, otherwise, Jay mentioned the Penguin coverage on Always Watching. Definitely recommend, if you're not watching that show, give it a chance. It is quality stuff. And then Animation Deliberations, the podcast where we take action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. Some exciting things happening there with Vox Machina Season 3.
Sweet. Yeah, definitely check that out. And as always, I'm over on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, where Agatha is in full swing. And last week's, again, like y'all were saying about Penguin being the best episode yet, I think that's true. And I think this week's Agatha, even though it was tiny short, it was really great, really exciting. So we're really having a great time talking about it. So come join us, and we'll be there. We right here on YouTube where we're streaming this. We'll be streaming tomorrow. So join us for that. And that'll be all for this week's Multiverse News, guys. Peace.
Until next time, true believers. Oh, what am I doing? totally
I love
just
that.
You got
You
your
know what's
wires
funny
crossed.
is that it went through my head too, and then you said it, and I was like, yes.
You know what it was? I was thinking about doing it in the Stitch voice, and then I think that's what messed me up.
No, I love it because you've done that before on MCCast, but that's not even your normal show. So it's really funny that you got the wrong one. It's great.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Stay classy. Hey, thanks for listening to Multiverse News, or watching it, or whatever you're doing. Eyeballs or ear holes, whichever thing. We do this show every week, and we appreciate you listening. StrandedPanda.com is where you can find all of our podcasts. And thank you for listening. Check us out wherever you get podcasts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the little bell icon, whatever you have on whatever service you're doing. Rate us, like us. We're really thirsty. That's what I'm saying.